Hello, listeners. As an enhancement to your listening experience, I am now going to present these archive episodes unedited in their entirety, which includes all of my afterthoughts. So, continue listening after the outro music if you want to hear what I thought of the episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please support it by going to the homepage, spacerockethistory.com, and clicking on the orange donate button or the Patreon link. And now I can also accept Zelle and Venmo. Just use my email address, spacerockethistory@gmail.com. Thanks.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine.
I feel okay, I'm out.
How does it feel for the United States to be the new record holder?
At last, huh? When that baby lights, there's no doubt about it.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Grifฟี่, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hello and welcome. This is Michael Annis, and you're listening to episode 243 of the Space Rocket History Podcast. And now, Apollo 12, Trans-Lunar Injection, and the Coast. 2 men and an instrument unit saved the Apollo 12 mission less than a minute after launch. A young man barely out of college, John Aaron, and astronaut Al Bean. Out of all the engineers and flight controllers and designers near the radio, John Aaron was the only one with a clue of which of the hundreds of switches might restore all the control settings. But in the command module, only Al Bean knew where that switch was. The only one not surprised by that was Pete Conrad, who knew that he was not a detail man, but Al Bean was. Even if Al had not been a good pilot, but he was, he had helped save the entire Apollo 12 mission and earned his seat on the Yankee Clipper. With Yankee Clipper in Earth orbit, Mission Control had some time to analyze what had happened. Sig Soberg, Chris Kraft's deputy and a gifted and intuitive design engineer, was deeply concerned over the reports of a lightning strike hitting Apollo 12. He could visualize the havoc that a lightning strike could cause in the Apollo spacecraft, and he was very concerned over the inability to make a complete checkout of the command and service module and booster prior to the translunar injection. Sig walked down to the systems row of controllers, talking briefly with guidance, then with ECOM, John Aaron. Moving into the trench, Sig approached Bostic. He said, "Jerry, if you feel uncomfortable in any way about the translunar injection, speak out." Fidgeting a bit, he continued, "I will support you if you give a no-go today." Sig then left and moved to the booster controllers, giving them the same speech. Chris Kraft, standing next to Flight Director Grifฟี่, offered the same advice, saying, "Young man, we don't have to go to the moon today. It's your call." The input of Kraft and Soberg immediately removed all political pressure from the decision. Grifฟี่knew all he had to do was make the right technical call. There could be no other way. It was impossible to check out the entire spacecraft. That could only be done on the ground. In the short time available, Griffin's team ran a pre-maneuver checklist, realigned the command and service module platform, and discussed proceeding with the mission with the crew. About 19 minutes before the scheduled translunar injection burn, the astronauts received the word from Mission Control that translunar injection was go. They were going to the moon. Everything that could be checked was okay. The third stage S-4B booster would be used for the translunar injection burn.
12 Houston, a good word is your go for TLI. Hoopy-doo, we're ready. We didn't expect anything else. We didn't train for anything else, Steve. You better believe it. Yeah, I'll tell you, Chair, we were just wondering if we'd trained for that launch either.
Throughout the mission, Mission Control and North American, the command and service module contractor, continued to analyze the lightning strike, assessing any critical circuitry that might have been damaged or would prematurely fail. The pyrotechnic systems were the principal systems that could not be checked out, since they would be needed only for normal entry. Their status had no bearing on the decision to go to the moon. John Aaron's SCE to AUX call became legendary, and Flight Director Grifฟี่survived his first launch. Now, here are the audio clips for the translunar injection burn.
We're a minute and a half away from the translunar injection burn. Ignition at 2:47:21, cutoff at 2:53:05. Burn duration of 5 minutes 44 seconds with a delta V or added velocity of 10,515 feet per second. Cutoff, we should have a total velocity of about 35,420 feet per second. And Apollo 12 should be at an altitude of about 195 miles at cutoff. We won't have data on this burn until about midway through it, when Apollo 12 is acquired by the Hawaii station. We're 30 seconds from ignition. We should have ignition, but we haven't heard from the crew yet. Voice communication through the Orion, not too good. Should be 30 seconds into the burn now. Coming up on 2 hours, 50 minutes elapsed time. We should be acquiring Hawaii in approximately 25 seconds. We have AOS from Hawaii now. Just a first signal, no data yet. Booster says he has no data yet.
Apollo 12 Houston through Hawaii, how do you read?
On the pipe.
We have data and thrust is go. Burn looks good.
Apollo 12 Houston in the blind, your trajectory and the S4 both look good.
Roger, they look good in here.
Roger, we're reading you weak but clear now, Pete.
Okay, everything's sticky-boo.
Good show.
Flight Dynamics says we're right on. Telemetry data shows velocity 31,195 feet per second, climbing rapidly. Altitude now 130 nautical miles. We're getting tracking data now in addition to telemetry. Predicted cutoff looks nominal, guidance reports. Velocity 32,700 now.
Everything's going here.
Roger, Pete, your cutoff looks nominal.
Looks good here.
33,000 feet per second. Altitude 153 nautical miles.
Smack on the lines, Pete.
Okay, sir.
Velocity approaching 34,000 feet per second now. And altitude 170 nautical miles. This burn continuing to go extremely well. 35,000 feet per second, altitude 187 nautical miles.
Okay.
Cutoff.
Down, EMS reads plus 10.2. The Disky reads 35413.
plus 05003 plus 01917.
Roger, Pete. Copy 10.2 on your EMS. Diski is 35413 plus 05003 and plus 01917.
Roger.
We were predicting a cutoff velocity of 35,420 feet per second. The onboard reading shows 35,413 feet per second. We showed cutoff altitude on board as 191.7 nautical miles. We had predicted 195. Altitude is now 203 nautical miles. Velocity will start to drop off now while altitude continues to climb very rapidly.
Apollo 12, Houston.
Go ahead, Houston.
Roger, would you give us IU uptell to accept? We want to close down a valve on your LOX valve on your O2H2 burner.
Okay, it's an accept.
Altitude now 403 nautical miles. Velocity is down to 34,426 feet per second.
Apollo 12, Houston, you can go back to block. We got your valve closed.
Okay.
And we're talking at you through Goldstone.
Roger.
Apollo 12, Houston, your cutoff looked real good. We'll spend a little time now evaluating your mid-course for you.
Okay. Earth is starting to get nice and round now. Can't see it all, but we can see a lot of it.
Roger.
That sounded like Al Bean.
Apollo 12, Houston, your attitude maneuver time is 3:08:04, and it'll be finished at 3 plus 12 plus 04, and we're looking at a separation time of 3 plus 18 plus 04.
Copy.
Altitude now 781 nautical miles. Velocity down to 32,824 feet per second. Getting rid of all that propellant in the S4Bs brought the weight down to 138,389 pounds. We're at 3 hours into the mission now. We passed up a separation time to the crew when they separate from the S4B at 3 hours, 18 minutes, 4 seconds. Altitude now 1,023 nautical miles. Velocity 31,900 feet per second.
With the success of the critical trans-lunar injection burn, the S4B third stage booster proved that it was not affected by the lightning strike, and now it was no longer needed. So the next critical maneuver was to separate the command and service module from the spacecraft Lunar Module Adapter, or SLA, that was currently sitting on top of the S4B booster.
The booster engineer reports the S4B has started maneuvering to the separation attitude.
Hello, Houston, Apollo 12. We're on a timeline. We'll be stepping at 3:18.
Roger, Pete, how's the ice situation on your windows now?
We've got awful bad windows. It's a shame because it's all the water that was on them, and it looks like it'll be with us for the flight.
Bad news, Pete.
It's okay. Can't win them all. Maybe I'll get out and clean them later.
Apollo 12 is 3.5 minutes away from the separation maneuver. Distance from Earth, 3,218 nautical miles. Velocity, 25,996 feet per second.
Houston, pyro arm.
Roger, 12.
1 minute from separation. We confirm separation.
We copy SLAWSEP, Pete.
Okay, we stepped.
Altitude at separation was about 3,800 nautical miles. Booster engineer reports the S4B stage nice and stable and looking good.
Well, we can see the whole United States, Houston.
After separation, the command and service module needed to turn around and dock with the lunar module now sitting on top of the third stage.
Command and service modules are now maneuvering into the docking attitude.
I got an awful pretty looking Intrepid sitting out the window here, gang. We'll go get her.
Roger.
And Pete Conrad has seen the lunar module Intrepid.
Apollo 12 Houston, you're go for docking.
Roger, Houston.
Apollo 12 is in docking attitude now.
Apollo 12 Houston, we're configured for television early if you want to punch it out.
Okay, we're punching it up right now.
Good show.
No picture yet, still standing by.
So look down here, Houston.
Nothing yet, Pete.
Picture's coming in now. Should be converted into color very shortly.
Hello there, Intrepid. 12 Houston, black and white is spectacular, and the color is really pretty good too. Apollo 12 Houston, the camera's cutting off about half of Intrepid now.
That's the best we can do. We're right next to it.
Roger.
5 feet.
Apollo 12 moving into dock with the lunar module.
You're looking right in the LEM overhead window right now.
Roger, Al, and the color is really great now.
Mr. Gordon, smooth as silk.
I think we just saw you grab it.
On the way in right now. You got a hard dock, Houston. She looks good. Both A and B are gray. All latches made.
Roger, Pete. Looks good. 12 Houston, what was that just floated past the window?
I don't really know, Houston. We were in here doing a checklist.
We're seeing some little white flecks floating past the window.
We're in a great big cloud of ice balls up here. They're just all over everywhere, and there's a lot of stuff floating up out of the S4B itself that looks like ice or white paint chips, one of the two.
Roger, we can even see it here.
Hey, Jerry, Dick, how much fuel did I waste during that docking?
Hang tight, Dick, we'll check. 12 Houston, you were nominal. You used 70 pounds.
That's too much.
The ice floating around was most likely due to launching in the rain. At the end, you heard Dick Gordon asking how much fuel he had expended during the docking maneuver. Although Gordon wasn't too happy with it, 70 pounds was nominal. Next, the command module was used to pull the lunar module away from the third stage.
We set Houston. It looked good, and of course you still can't see anything yet. When we pitch around, I'll show it to you.
Roger, 12.
That was Al Bean reporting separation on time.
Apollo 12 Houston, we're copying television now, and as soon as you finished with your ejection and you're clear, we'll go ahead and enable the S4B evasive maneuver.
We do have the lines back up, and we are getting a picture now.
You see those flashes, Houston? That's the RCS thrusters reflecting off the quads on the LEM.
Roger.
Oh, there's the S4B, and I can see it venting.
Roger, 12. When you're well clear and you're ready for us, let us know, and we'll start the maneuver to the evasive attitude.
Boy, is that thing venting? What's it keep venting anyhow, Houston? Keeps throwing out big clouds or something.
Roger, we're not supposed to be venting anything.
Boy, it's throwing stuff off the sides and out the back like crazy.
Roger, can you get us a picture?
We'll get you some on the TV if we can. It's just, looks like it's venting something out of the rear end. Big radial clouds of it coming out the back.
That's really something.
The S4B venting that Conrad mentioned was attributed to a liquid oxygen valve that had failed in the open position. Now, with the command and service module and the lunar module separated from the venting third stage, it was time to put some distance between the spacecrafts and the booster.
Can you see that thing throwing stuff out the back, Houston?
We could a while ago, and it looks like it's got a halo around it now. Is it still there?
Well, that's the sun shining in the front end. But from the angle that we have on it, there's something venting out the apse engines are on either side, and the upper apse engine, the engine that's away from the Earth, No, I'm not talking about that. I'm trying to reference them to whatever it is that's spinning back there. It's a line. See that line coming out of the engine over on the left-hand side?
12 Houston, we got a hunch that what happened is when that LOX valve failed open and we tried to close it ourselves, it probably burned out the burner. Maneuver's complete, 12.
Okay, and when are you going to make the apps? Oh, hey, it just vented something tremendously. Can you see that, Houston?
Yeah, we can see it now, Pete.
Yeah, okay, it stopped again.
Houston, are you going to make that maneuver on time at 11:40?
Again.
Houston, are you going to make that maneuver on time at 11:40? 12 Houston, we're looking at 426 plus 18 for that burn.
Roger, 426 plus 18.
Distance is 14,252 nautical miles from Earth. Velocity 15,552 feet per second.
We got the S4 now, 12.
Roger, are you starting the set maneuver?
That's affirmative. We're ready now.
Okay, we're ready.
Haulage motors are on.
Yeah, we can see it starting to move now, Houston. And the motor's firing.
Roger. 12 Houston, the apps maneuver is complete.
How much you figure you got out of that, Houston?
About 10 feet per second, Dick.
Yeah, that's pre-planned. Did you really get that?
12 Houston, the burn was nominal. If the vehicle was a shade lighter, we might have gotten just a little bit more delta V out of it.
Okay, well, that thing did a fantastic job for us today.
Sure did.
With the major Earth vicinity maneuvers complete, it was time for the long translunar coast. It took about 3 days to coast across the distance between the Earth and the Moon. Although the crew was traveling fast, they remarked that it really didn't feel that way. The stars were still too far away to sense motion. The only sensation that they had of movement was the view of the Moon getting larger and the Earth getting smaller. Pete Conrad remembered the translunar coast as, quote, "kinda boring." Pete said everything was automated until they got to the Moon, so there wasn't a lot to do other than shave and brush your teeth. To Pete, the command and service module didn't seem a lot bigger than the Gemini capsule, other than the 3-across couch and the crawl space leading to the docked lunar module. There wasn't a great deal of elbow room, nor privacy. It was a good thing this crew liked each other's company. Music had become a staple of space flights. The astronauts seemed to perform better when the stereo was on, and time seemed to pass quicker. They had cassettes given to them by record label owner Mickey Cap, and a player mounted in the bulkhead just like it was a car. Mission Control piped a few requests in during downtimes. Pete and Al preferred country. Dick wiggled and danced to Sugar Sugar by the Archies so many times that Al Bean was ready to scream. Just like boys on a long road trip arguing over the radio. Salutations from Southern Alabama. This is Michael Annis, your host, and I wanted to say thanks for listening to episode number 243 of the Space Rocket History Podcast entitled Apollo 12 Trans-Lunar Injection and the Coast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a pleasure to bring it to you. I want to give a big shout out to all my longtime listeners. Thanks for staying subscribed, and extend a warm welcome to my new listeners. I'm glad you're here. case you haven't heard, the first 48 episodes of the podcast are now available on the Space Rocket History Archive podcast. To find the archive episodes, search for Space Rocket History Archive. Today, we salute the Mercury level donors. There are 34 so far this year. Mercury donors contribute $20 or more during the calendar year. Thanks for your continued support, Mercury donors. Had a few afterthoughts about this week's episode. There was not much information available on the translunar injection and the coast for Apollo 12, but I was able to sift through about 3.5 hours of audio to give you those highly edited clips. They were cut up pretty much because there was a lot of dead space in there and a lot of stuff that was not really relevant to what I wanted to present. Unfortunately, I did not have any of the internal crew conversations, and that was really disappointing. I could not find that anywhere. But we did get the back and forth between Houston and the capsule. Well, I thought Mission Control took a risk on proceeding with the mission with the limited information they had. As I spent most of my career as an electrical engineer, and we were always taught to design conservatively. That's why I found it a little surprising a bunch of engineers would have said go, but that is from my limited perception. I'm sure they had a lot of pressure to go. That was a lot of expensive hardware they just launched, and ultimately, they did make the right decision. That Saturn proved to be very robust. But I wonder, would we have made the same decision today? I don't know. Would we have gone for the moon? I don't know if I would have been that aggressive, but it turned out great for Apollo 12. I want to give a shout out to and a thank you to Garden Fork Radio Podcast. Jimmy and Eric over there had some very kind words for the podcast on episode 464, and I wanted to thank them very much for the mention and all the kind words. If you get a chance, check out the Garden Fork Radio Podcast. Also, I want to mention I got a very thoughtful gift from a listener, Jason C. He thought that the Space Rocket History Podcast deserved a mission patch, just like a regular space mission. And so he created one. It looks super nice. It shows the Earth, the Moon, and Mars with a Saturn V rocket flying between them. I'm going to put it up on the Fan Art tab at the Space Rocket History homepage. So check that out if you get a chance. And also, check out the pictures and audio for this episode at the homepage, spacerockethistory.com. I was pleased to receive several new donations to support the podcast over the past week. Jason C. from Australia donated at the Orion level and earned his rocket emoji. Matthew B. from the UK donated at the Apollo level. Stephen M. from California donated at the Mercury level and earned his satellite emoji. PJW increased his pledge on Patreon to the shuttle level with rocket and moon emojis. Josh A. pledged on Patreon at the Gemini level. Andrew F. pledged on Patreon at the Mercury level and earned his rocket emoji. And Adam D. pledged on Patreon at the Mercury level. Our Patreon totals so far this year are at 155, with a goal of reaching 218 for 2018. And our overall donors for 2018 have reached 187, with a goal of reaching 418 in 2018. For those of you who are enjoying the content provided here and have not donated yet in 2018, please consider supporting the podcast if you're financially able. Keep in mind, Space Rocket History is entirely listener-funded. There are several ways you can donate. The easiest thing to do is to go to the homepage, spacerockethistory.com, and click on the orange Donate button or the Patreon link. It'll be on the right side of the page. For those of you who have already donated for 2018, I certainly appreciate it. Have an item to give away this week. It is the official Space Rocket History logo vinyl refrigerator magnet. It has the picture of the official SRH logo with the rockets. To select the winner, I gave every 2018 donor a number. I put the range in the Google's random number generator and got the number for Buddy P. Murphy. Buddy Murphy, if you would email me, Mike@spacerockethistory.com, and tell me your address, and I will mail this out to you. Okay, folks, thanks for putting up with me this week. I've been battling an illness all week, and I'm about wiped out right now. So I hope to have episode number 244 posted by next Thursday. So long for now.